Cheat Code. Hey everyone, welcome to Pickleball Cheat Code, the show for competitive pickleball players who want to level up their game. We focus on advanced strategies for experienced players, stuff only the pros really know. I'm Brodie Smith. I'm a 5.5 plus level player and a dedicated coach. And I'm here with a very, very, very special guest, the one and only Tito Machado, the CEO of DUPR.
Hi, everyone. We'll check on that 5.5, by the way.
Okay, yeah, we'll get back to that in a bit. But today we are going to be covering if DUPR really matters, and if so, how you can use DUPR to level up your game. And if we've done anything to improve your game on the show, please share this show with your pickleball community. All right, let's get into it. Welcome, Tito. How you doing, man? Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Same, man. Pretty good. Doing good. Yes, excited to be here. Excited to talk with you. I think this is a perfect podcast, honestly, to discuss DUPR and, a lot of competitive players that want to get better, want to hopefully not climb the ladder, because DUPR is not a climbing the ladder concept, but they want to make sure that they're working on their games to then, as a product of working on their games, their DUPR will go up. So happy to go through, to kind of like a little bit of mythbusters and make sure that we discuss the journey of players to get better. So excited to be here.
Love it. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, a lot of our, if not all of our listeners are DUPR users, and I'm a DUPR user myself, and it's good to have it as a way to track progress throughout your journey. But before we dive into that any further, I would love for us to take a step back and have you tell us about your journey. How did you become, the owner of DUPR, the CEO of DUPR, to where you are today? And how did you get the idea of a universal pickleball rating and getting the system into the pickleball world?
Yeah, so it's been a crazy freaking journey. I used to have my hairline was so much better when I started this. It was great, but actually I used to work in tennis, man. I used to work for a company named UTR. A lot of you guys know it because a lot of APP USA Pickleball events were using UTR, and tennis was crazy. It's a legacy sport. It was impossible to move the needle in tennis, right? You have 100-year-old federations, governing bodies, and we had a really good control of a niche side of the tennis market, which was a college player. The college player that wanted to get a scholarship to play tennis, that's what was using UTR. And then we were trying to work with federations, and it was very tough. Back in 2021 or 2022, January, I think, I got flown down to an event in Arizona, a PPA event. I honestly didn't know anything about pickleball. Flew down there because Jill Braverman, the former CEO, and Steve Kuhn told me, hey, come to pickleball. Let's build DUPR. Let's build this rating for all of the community. And, the sport is starting to explode. So, I flew down. I saw the event. I kind of saw people, playing pickleball of all ages together and having a great experience. And it was an aha moment. I left my cozy job at UTR and I was like, you know what? Like, this is crazy. It's risky, but let's do it. And, just the instinct didn't fail me. I was right. I think pickleball was the right decision for me. So came in actually initially just running the commercial side, kind of the monetization and clubs and activities and partnerships. That's what I came in to do. And I was doing everything, right? I was wearing so many hats, just talking to every single player. I was the one getting yelled at, right? I was the face and the one in the ground. So very fast, I kind of started to understand the industry. I turned into a player myself. It's been a crazy journey since then, right? I left DUPR for a little bit, and then I came back as CEO to kind of change the whole dynamic of the company. The whole goal at the end of the day was the opposite to UTR. Is we're very focused on hey, how can we capture the rec player? How can we capture the 3.5, the 4.0, the 4.5? So we're able to build a whole journey for those players from the beginning to maybe the pros, or not even the pros, just for them to kind of see the whole progress through a scale, a system. That's what we wanted to do. And, started at 0 users and now we're at 1.5 million. So it's been definitely a journey.
1.5 million is crazy. What a climb, 0 to 1.5. Yeah, I mean, this journey that you've been on obviously is insane. And it's just exciting to see the growth of this platform with the growth of the sport. It's all been the wild, wild west. So it's really cool to see where we are today, just as a community as a whole, and then where DUPR is. So all amazing stuff to see. So I appreciate the insight and the background there. But as you alluded to earlier, pickleball cheat code, above all else, is about helping players get better and leveraging any single tool that they can use to improve their game. So with that said, I'm assuming this will be a yes, and I have my reasons to agree as well. But to kick things off, does a DUPR rating matter for a player? And if yes, how can our listeners and how can players like myself and even pro players, 3.0 players, use a DUPR rating to level up their game and improve throughout their span of a pickleball athlete?
Yeah, I think it's very important to define DUPR the right way, right? And DUPR is not a gamifiable system, and this is extremely important for those players trying to get better. There is no cheat code to your DUPR to go up, except to work harder and improve your game. This is key, right? Like I think a lot of how the system was built in the past, it had this feeling of like, I'm gonna get rewarded or I'm gonna get punished. If I win, I go up. If I lose, I go down. We were kind of strategizing the ways to play the system. How can I play the right tournaments? How can I beat the right people? How can I do this to inflate my number? And again, the goal is to get better as a pickable player, right? DUPR is just a product of that progress. If you're gamifying the system, if you're not playing the right games, if you are protecting your DUPR, I know we see that a lot in the community. Well, I don't want to play because I don't want my DUPR to get affected. The only one who's getting cheated on is yourself, right? Because you are not kind of getting the real representation of your level. So if we look at DUPR, right? DUPR is a body of data that DUPR has from your competitive games. That's truly what it is. It's an average. If we have 30 games from Brodie, right, we have an average, and this average of games is telling us that Brodie is a 5-5. That's truly what we're trying to do. So now, this is key because to be able to level up, right, to find the right partners, to find the right players, to find the right people in the community, we have this universal language. Anywhere you go in the world right now, people are going to ask you, what's your DUPR? It's one of the most common things. People might complain about it, might hate about it, but if you go to the park and you're there with your bag and you're pulling out your paddle, people, oh, what's your DUPR? Oh, I don't care about it. I really don't care about it. I really, that's kind of like the dialogue that we always hear. But the truth is that if we're able to connect the whole community all over the world, right now, we can go anywhere. We can go to China, we can go to Vietnam, we can find players at our level. And honestly, we can put goals, right? We can say, hey, my goal is to be able to be a 5-6, a 5-7 by end of year. I know that what Ben Jones is. I know that's the best player in the world. So I want to make sure that I am upping my skills through training, through practicing, through stuff like that. So I'm able to understand where I am in my pickable journey.
100%. Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And you definitely touched on a lot of points there. And one of the other things I want to dig into further as well is, leveraging that number, the data, the collection of data that you're getting from playing more to actually take those next steps in your journey. So are there other ways to leverage the platform in terms of, using the system to find players that are your similar skill level that you want to compete with? Because obviously it's better to compete with players that are your level and then players that are better than you. We talk about that a lot on the pod, is do whatever you can to find players better than you, because that's the true way of improving. And then also just being able to track progress over time. So what kind of ways do you see players using the tool to help improve their game from that aspect?
Yeah. So listen, making sure that you're able to find players, tournaments, events, everything else. You obviously can do that with DUPR, but most importantly, we've been focusing on being a very utilitarian kind of concept. We have integrated with every single platform that there is in Pickable, right? If you go and use a booking system, they're using DUPR. If you go and use a tournament management software, they're using DUPR, data company. So I think in many ways, there is a home menu for you guys to use, right, to be able to up my game. We have video. We have a lot of companies who do video, right? You can able to track your progress, how you're playing, look at your DUPR, how you're progressing. So I guess DUPR I think we've done a good job kind of being this like number that is everywhere for you to use and accessible for you to use. So yeah, you should be looking on DUPR. You should be looking for players in your area. Who can I play with? Where are their events? What kind of tournament should I be playing with? And honestly, seeing how you're competing. And Brodie, you're right. Playing up is, I think everyone wants to always play up. That's a historical thing. You want to get on the court with the good players, and then the good players.
Well, some people want to sandbag and get down a little bit too. So that's we see both aspects for the sandbagging and trying to do that to level up their game, which is, that opens up a whole can of worms regarding the algorithm and how that works. But yeah, that's something that we see a lot as well. So using it the wrong way versus using it the right way, and two different ways to look at it. But yeah.
1000%. And listen, looking for players to go up, I think a lot of people are trying to get those players to go up to be able to improve. And again, there is this whole concept of gamifying your journey on DUPR, right? Like I feel like I've seen a lot of people who get to a certain level, they're like, I'm not playing anymore. I got to that beautiful 5-0. I got it. It's mine. I don't care if the reliability is low, and I'm not gonna play anymore. Again, this is just the wrong way. And I think we need to build that honor system in the sport, right? I think this is the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I think we need to build community around it. And you're right, playing down and trying to cheat the system for you to improve, it's not the right way to do this, right? Like, why have a DUPR that shows a 5-0 when you have a 4-5 level, right? That's that's not your true level. That's not the representation of who you are in the pickable space. So we're going to add more and more tools and more parameters, so we're able to take control of the situation. So people are looking for the right level-based play and competing. Now, that's why we changed the algorithm, Brodie, honestly, because specifically the two bipolar systems that you described, the people trying to play up and the people trying to play down, was causing an issue on the rating, and it was making us, and it was creating a polarism, it was creating polar opposites, so we were not rating people correctly. That's why we did the change, and that's why we're adding all of these tools, so you're able to use this the right way without trying to use it as a reward system, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Because to dive into that too, and that's one of the main questions I had. And I'm actually on your side with this. And a lot of people, it's caused such crazy debates online and Instagram, YouTube, wherever, regarding the algorithm change. And the algorithm change, you'll explain it way better than I can. But essentially, you can win a match and your DUPR can go down, and you could lose a match and your DUPR can go up. Whereas before, if you won, no matter what, your DUPR couldn't go down. But now it's based on the total algorithm. So if I were to play Ben Johns and I lost 11-9, my DUPR is going up and his is going down, for example, since his is so high. Whereas before that wouldn't be the case. So now it's based off the forecasting. But people get so upset when they win and their DUPR goes down. But at the end of the day, to me, it makes sense. And, obviously it'd be making for a more interesting debate if me and you are on opposite ends here. But I do have to agree where everything has to be looked at as a giant collection of data. There's so many things that go into this, whereas people get so dialed in and so focused on just one result and one match, which I understand you have that recency bias and you want to focus on what just happened. However, you have to look at these rating systems as a giant collection of data. And the more you compete, like you said earlier, it will represent your true level, and you can't really gamify that per se. So, I mean, you can take that and expand on what I just said, I think, a little bit further. But I just wanted to give my thoughts on that change there too.
No, you're completely right, man. And this is a body of data. I think one of the issues, or maybe things that we've added onto the app, which creates a little engagement, is the whole arrow up, arrow down, green and red, and those colors kind of mean different things, and it triggers different things in our brain, and we get really upset. The truth is, a lot of the complaints that we get are, people moving to 1/thousandth of a place. So you go 0.001 down, and they see the red arrow going down, and it's like, it sucked. I won this tournament and my DUPR went down. Well, not really. Like, the true numbers that really matter, honestly, are the first one and the second one. Those are the true numbers that matter. We offer you kind of a bigger deep dive into more data, so it makes it more fun and you're able to check it. But it's not what you're supposed to look at. Again, we're looking at the last 90 games, 10 games, whatever we have from you. And from all of those games, we're trying to give you an accurate representation of who you are. So this is very important. There is no punishment and reward. And I know I've said this multiple times, punishment and reward. There is no punishment and reward. That's not the intent of our algorithm. It's calibration, right? That's what's happening. It's we receive information and we calibrate, So the more we learn, the more we try to put you in the right place, take you up, take you down according with the data that we have. And that's the way we're supposed to look at this, right? What a lot of the things that will be a little bit of a growing pain is that the old algo allowed for inflation. You know, so so a lot of players that so a lot of players that were the top dog in their community, right? And they were only, they were playing only with a group of people, and they kept winning, kept winning, kept winning, kept winning. They kept going up, they kept going up, they kept going up. So they kept getting rewarded. Now the algo, it's gonna, now that we are using more data, it's gonna try to bring them back to where we think their actual rating is. So I think that's a little upsetting, and I get it, man. I understand why someone will be upset. I work hard to win all of my games to get to a 5.8, but maybe I'm not a 5.8. Maybe you're more of a 5.6. But the winning of all of those games, or your domination, was rewarding you. So it's gonna be part of the situation coming in the next couple of months. I get it. It's gonna be upsetting. I get so many DMs on Instagram, people upset for this. So, but it's gonna be more accurate. And I think there is a very important question that we need to ask the community. What should be our goal? Should our work be to make everyone happy, or to be the more accurate rating? If the work is to be the most accurate rating, we need to look at every single data point and put people on the right place, and make sure that it's showing who you are on the pickable court today.
Yeah. No, I think that's well said. And an area I wanted to push back on, or at least get some clarity, is let's say we're doing a tournament that has a group stage, and each match is just 1 game to 11, right? But we know that in pickleball, the better players, as the longer match goes on, like a best of 5, a best of 3, a 2 out of 3, it's going to favor the better player. Like if I played Ben Johns, I might get, probably not. I'll lose 4-11 in game 1, and that's game 1 and it's over. But if it's a 2 out of 3, he's probably going to kick my ass 11-0 the next game, since he's adjusting and dialing, and it's going to favor the smarter, better player. So is there any discrepancy that's measured on 1 game to 11, 1 game to 15 versus a 2 out of 3, or is it all treated the same? Do you see what I'm getting at? I just want to make sure that players are favored for longer matches per se, if that is taken into account into the algorithm at all.
Yeah, of course. It's taking into account in your reliability. It's taking into account the way the algorithm, the more data that we're getting, the more games that we're getting, and so on. But there are systems looking at how long the game is and a bunch of other things, who you're playing with, reliability of the opponent. It's taking all of these factors into account for the algorithm. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is it all balances itself out, and this is very important, right? Like, yes, you might have that game against Ben Jones once, but in another tournament, you're going to have someone who was a little weaker than you playing against you, and it took you a little more to warm up, and so everything, it's when we look at all of these tournaments, all of these games, it's learning from that one game, but it's also learning from the other 50. And you some days, I remember seeing this a lot. What happens if I sprain my ankle and I underperform because my ankle was I was injured, right? And listen, that can happen the other way around too. You can have a game where the other player underperforms and so on. So I think that ultimately what I'm trying to say here is that the more you play, the more data that you add, the more different scenarios that we have from you, right? The more accurate it's going to get, right? So yes, there are nuances to small moments, situations, smaller games, stuff like that. But it's a self-solving issue, guys. It's just like, go and play another event, go and play another tournament, go and play there, and it will put you back exactly where you're supposed to be. Now, the truth is, Brodie, if you are 100% reliable, 5-5, 100% reliable, and you have a bad weekend, it's not going to be that bad, man, because we know so much about you. We have so much information about you that it's going to be minimum movement, unless you're consistently proving to us that you're worse than you are and you keep going down, then you'll see movement. Same thing of going up, but it's an average thing.
Yeah. And no, that's a good point. And well, currently, to be fair, I'm a 5.801, not to brag, but my reliability is down to a 53 right now. So, because I haven't competed since I've been traveling so much, and I did a local tournament recently, but they weren't using DUPR for the open division. However, the next tournament I do compete in, I am a little afraid. I don't want to get below the 5.5 mark, but I also want to get above the 6.0 mark. With that 53 reliability score, what does that mean versus having that 100? Like, obviously, it's going to be more variability going to my match, but like, how much is that going to impact me if I underperform or overperform, for example?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a bunch of factors that are going to go into that. Who you're playing, as I said,
Yeah,
and
my
it's
partner,
your
all that
partner and
stuff.
a bunch of things. It's tough to say. I think it's good. Like you should definitely check the forecast tool, and that will allow you to kind of like see how it's going to impact. By the way, we're adding impact on that tool now in December. So now you're going to be able to see what the expected core is, but you're also going to be able to see how it's going to affect your rating, certain scores. So you're going to be able to see that pre-game, which I think is pretty neat. So you could actually go to a first round and be like, hey, if I win this game 11-7, right, this is how it's going to impact my rating. Some people are going to love that. Some people are going to get nervous pre-game. But we're adding that
I was about
into.
to say, do you think most players are going to want to see that going in a match? Do you think that's going to help people going into it mentally, or do you think it's going to psych them out and make them play worse, knowing that they have this exact score and maybe they're going to be making more bad out calls, for example, since every point matters? I mean, I'm just thinking more about, obviously from the data collection side, it makes sense. However, I'm just thinking from the antics side, like how much pressure that's going to add to players going into a tournament. I'm curious if it'll make them perform better or worse. Is what I'm really getting to.
Yeah, listen, I think it all depends on you. And this podcast is about getting better and using the
Yeah.
tools that you have to be able to find your triggers. I'm a little bit of a competitive monster. If I have the number in my mind, I know I'm gonna be fired up. I know exactly where I need to get. I'm goal
Yeah.
oriented. It's like KPIs. I know exactly what I want to hit. How many goals I have
Hmm.
to do. I work in sales in my past life, so I know exactly where I have to go, and I like that. I perform better knowing than not knowing. Some players don't, and I think every player is gonna be very different when it comes to that scenario, right? But again, we're trying. We're truly trying to be as transparent as possible, man. That's ultimately the goal. I feel like I'm obsessed with like putting myself out there, the team, talking to people, give them almost everything that we're doing on the DUPR side, make it public. Because if there is something that anyone can say about us is, you can hate us or love us or not, but at least I want people to know that we care and that we're kind of like looking at every single thing and we're giving you as much as possible. And we want to be loved, man. We want people to be pro duper and understand that like everything else in life, it's very important to us. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure we are as transparent as possible also so it makes sense, because I think a lot of things I read online and stuff like that, people don't fully understand it yet, or there's a lot of
Exactly.
misinformation. So we're kind of like, here is all of it. You get full visual in what's happening. You tell us if it makes sense or not.
Yeah. No, I think it could definitely rub people the wrong way if you were to make a change and then not say anything and not address it. So the transparency is obviously great for the community to see. They still may not agree with it or like it at the end of the day, but at least you guys are putting in the effort to answer everybody's questions and address how the data works and just how statistics work in general, because that's what this comes down to at the end of the day. But yeah, it's tough. It's like for these ratings in general, people get duper derangement syndrome, as I like to call it personally, is where you're so afraid of these changes that are coming to your rating, competing players that are worse than you, competing against somebody that's better than you and is going to kick your butt, whatever it might be, or like being afraid to lose somebody worse than you. I think what the overall theme here, and you touched on this a few times too, is just compete more. And this helps you as a player to get more experience, get more reps. The more you're competing, the better you're going to play, the less tight you'll be in a tournament, the less nervous you're going to be. So go out there and don't be afraid to throw your duper in the line and throw your rating in the line. Don't be so caught up on this label. It's just a number at the end of the day. And then in theory, like you said, it will work itself out over time. It's going to be more true to who you are. So being able to accept like, hey, maybe you're not as good as you thought. Maybe you're closer to that 3.9 and you're not a 4.1. That's okay. It's just a number. It's going to change over time if you put in the work, if you care about it. There's going to be dips. I might play bad in my next tournament. I might drop to a 5.2, for example, and it would drive me nuts. But at the end of the day, it might be more accurate to who I actually am, and I'm not a 5.8. So be it. So I think that's just the main messaging that I want our listeners to take away is don't be so caught up on a label. Don't take your duper so seriously, because it's not that serious. I mean, at the end of the day, this is freaking pickleball. But you got to be able to have just the mindfulness and awareness to use that number to your advantage and compete more and really drive yourself to improve by playing more tournaments is what it comes down to, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 1000%, man. And you hit a couple of very, very important points. there is nothing wrong with being a 3.9 duper. Like it's not like
Not at all.
having a higher duper. It's again, this is the complex part, right? Like the rating is not supposed to be an ego thing. It's not supposed to be your identity.
Yeah,
It doesn't define you, right? It's just a representation of who
100%.
you are today on the pickleball court, right? And with the data that we have, right, with what you have given us, right? It's not a magic system. It's like we have 9 games that from Brodie. That's all. That's the whole story that we can tell about Brodie. We don't have anything else. The more that we add from
Yeah.
Brodie, the more accurate of a representation it can be. So, but again, I think there is this whole thing like, I see this a lot, like road to 6-0, road to, which is great, I get it, but like ultimately, this is not a wall that we're supposed to climb. The only wall you're supposed to climb is the improvement of your skills, right? Like, as I said,
Yes.
your duper is only a result of how you're playing pickleball. So if you want your duper to go up, make sure you're working on the backhand dink. That's what I need to work on. I mean, I cannot freaking hit 3 backhand dinks in a row. So I need to work on that. And that's what's going to, over time, make that number go up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the little things that you're putting in your game that will make the long-term gains of your number and your duper rating. So don't worry about it on a week-to-week basis. It's like going to the gym and lifting weights. You're not going to find results in a week. You're not going to find results in 6 months. Like it takes a lot of time for this to come through. I mean, maybe 6 months, but you get my point. It's very granular. It's daily little things that you're attributing to your game and to your level and continuing to put yourself out there. And continuing to lift, continuing to drill, continuing to compete. And then that's what's going to make the long-term effects to actually truly improving who you are as a player versus worrying more about a number. But that number at the end of the day it's a great benchmark to, like we said earlier, to find players that are close to your level, above your level, find players in your community through the app and use that and leverage that as just a simple benchmark without applying any ego towards it. Even though it's very easy and natural for our minds to do that. I mean, that happens to me when I'm looking at my number. I'll get an ego boost if I see my duper grow up, but that's not how it necessarily should be. It should just be a way to track your progress and be proud of yourself that you've been able to make the proper steps towards where you want to be and what your goals are within the sport.
Correct.
So I wanted to chat a little bit more about the future of Duper 2. So you're talking about the impact tool. So I'd love to touch on that more. And if you wanted to elaborate more on the forecasting tool, which is a recent tool that I don't think a lot of people know about in terms of the functionality of that. So I'd love to hear more about what you guys are planning for the next 12 to 24 months coming up here and what people should expect.
Yeah, we are, as you said, we're adding more and more data points. The whole goal here is we're adding the impact, right? Which is like, depending on what score, how is that going to affect your rating? So let's say that, me and Brodie go and play, right? I'm going to be able to see how a 11-7 win will impact my duper, right? So I know exactly, I can play with the different numbers, I can test it, I can try it out. Right now, we've released the duper forecast, where it shows specifically the spread, what the expectation of the algorithm of the score is going to be. So for example, if the algorithm expects Brodie to be me 11-5, it's going to show 11-5. If the score is 11-6, that means that I overperformed and my duper is going to go up. If the score is 11-4, it means that I underperform and my duper is going to go down. So it's where we draw the line of movement when it comes to duper. The other things that we're going to add are, is more data points. We're going to keep giving more transparency. We are, one of the big things that I'm reading online is gender, age ratings. It's one of the big complaints that we get, so we're going to offer those. We're going to offer sub scores. They're not going to be your main duper because your duper is your full story, but we're going to be able to tell people, hey, how do you compare to other 50-year-olds and other 65-year-olds? So we're going to add that into the system. This is a very hot topic in the community. I know, there was like a big thing with some coaches online and posting on forums and stuff like that, complaining heavily. I don't know if you saw those issues that happened back
I saw Dane going after it. Dane was one of them for sounding off. There's a lot of other coaches and players sounding off, which was just, it's always fun to see pickleball drama. I'm always here to eat popcorn and watch from the sidelines, but it's
man.
crazy.
Dane is building a brand. Just going. He's a great coach, and I think his book is fantastic. And I think listen. I think if he believes what he's saying, he's doing it with his heart. Great. If not, it sucks because he's definitely attacking us pretty heavy. But I think the
Yes.
key thing here is that, listen, guys, it's not as easy to get as many data points as people think from users. Okay, so if I'm going to use just an example again, Brodie. Let's say you're Brodie, but this is Brodie in like 50 years, and you're 6 years old, right? And we're looking at, now you have 10 games, right? And now we're excluding all of the games that we have from you, and we're only saying that I'm going to use the ones that you're playing against 6-year-olds. And now I'm going to say that from those games, I'm only going to use the ones that you are playing with only males, right? We're breaking the data into so many little pieces that it truly affects accuracy. And I think as people don't understand this, like, you're diluting the data, right? That's what you do. You just say, I don't want this piece. I just want to have the piece where I feel like it's going to boost my ego the most, which is like, I am this level when it comes to this age. And for us, again, it's not that easy to get that many data points from a player. It's tough. Like, you're some of the players, so we have a lot of games that we can look at your body of data, and it's going to be more accurate, right? From 65-year-old John who plays in Naples, right? Like, we might only have this 10 games. So now we want to break it down into small pieces. It's tough. But again, our solution to a lot of these concerns is more transparency, man, and then let people kind of see why we're doing the things that we're doing, explaining it, give it to them so they're able to have it. I think that's the route that we're going to go, because, again, I don't want anyone to be upset. Their main DUPR, your DUPR, right, has to be seen as a metric that it doesn't matter what age you are, right? Why? Because, like, the way I always use this reference, if you go 30 miles an hour, right, it doesn't matter if you're 65 or 30. 30 miles an hour are 30 miles an hour regardless of your age. It's just a metric of speed, right?
Yep.
DUPR should be a metric of level, right? This is also because, like, there are 6-year-olds who are 5'5s. So just because you are a 60-year-old that is not a 5'5 doesn't mean that the rating is wrong. It just means that, what do we do with a 5'5 DUPR rated 6-year-old? Like, they're actually, our body of data is saying that that's their level. So it's a very complex issue, but for us, solution is going to be just give people more data points, more visibility, give them as much of these points that they can see so they can get and understand it. So hopefully, we truly get them to get behind this metric, add more games, work for accuracy, and create this community component where we're all speaking the same language, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and because that was one of the issues or hiccups that I noticed in terms of an inconsistency part, that it sounds like it's getting resolved with all these data points, is that a 5-0 player in SoCal or a 5-0 player in Boca Raton, Florida, when they go compete against a 5-0 in the middle of Kansas or in Topeka, Kansas, let's say, no disrespect if you're in the middle of Kansas, there's nothing wrong with that. But my point is, those players usually are a lot better when their ratings are the exact same. And that's something we've noticed is, like, going to a Midwest tournament, there's a huge advantage versus going to one of the, pickleball hotspots and competing there with those same rated players is much more difficult. So it sounds like that'll be working itself out over time. But outside of the age aspect, I've noticed that just from a regionality aspect too.
Completely. Listen, it's when you play in a bubble and you keep winning in that bubble, right? On the old algorithm, you kept going on no matter what. Like, in theory, you could have someone reach a Ben Jones type of level, only playing in their in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, where I went to college, small town, but if I just play there with the same group every single time and I keep winning, there, it's just like, it's gonna go up. Of course, with reliability, it's gonna go a little slower. It's gonna take you time, but hey, you can actually get there. So what we're trying to say here is, like, this is going to calibrate everyone back, because now we can look at all of these different points. And now, again, that inflation that was created is going to go away over time if people give us time to get there. And that's gonna be a good representation of your level, right? So a 5.5 in South Florida is gonna be the same as a 5.5 in Bloomsburg, no matter what. That's where we're going to.
Good. That's how it should be. I love that versus the inflated areas that, I'm like, it's harder to get better here when I'm competing in SoCal with all these talented players. But now the true collection of data over time will potentially favor me just because I'm competing with higher level players. So it'll help me sharpen and become a better player and then have a true accurate number to represent that. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the last questions I had before we part was, from your vantage point, like how do you see the rating system evolving over the next 5 to 10 years from the scale that we're on right now, where people are like, wait, I thought 5.60 was the highest. And then we see Ben Johns climbing towards like an 8. Are we going to be in that 2 to 8 range? Or is this going to be something where your duper can go higher than 8? Like what is the range, so to speak, that you see in the next few years, next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. Listen, 8 is gonna be the limit. I think historically, what we see with algorithms is that there is a tendency to numbers to shift down. Okay, this is what usually happens. Actually, we add measures, and this is why we have very smart data scientists to be able to control these elements. But over time, you're gonna have people that are going to be stronger than Ben Jones, that are going to be stronger. But the tendency of algorithms is kind of like down. At UTR, actually, this is a great example because I have the experience in tennis. I remember when I started, we had, Serena Williams was like a 14 UTR. By the time I left, the algorithm, she was still number one in the world, but the algorithm had taken her down to like a 12 UTR, So the tendency is usually the more data that we are, people are going lower, and it gives a little bigger range to get people rated.
That's cool. Okay, no, that makes total sense. I appreciate the explanation there because it just seemed like everything just kept going up and up. But now it seems like things will be trending in a more like confined direction, which will be easier to measure where I am versus a top pro, things like that. And I guess the last question I had is, like I said, I'm currently a 5.8. Outside of pickleball, is there anything that I can do to get over 6.0? Do you take bribes? Is there anything that do you accept Venmo, PayPal? What do I have to do to get above 6.0 without having to play better? Because I don't think I'm going to be able to get there for a while.
Yeah, you can leave my Venmo here on the link. You can, and everyone, I do take bribes. Make sure, just put a little pizza emoji. I'll know that's you. No, I mean, listen.
The pizza emoji.
As I said, it has to. We're just a product of your skill. So get to the court. Get good coaches. Make sure that you are you're working on the things that you need to work on, and get out there, add more data, learn more about you, compete. Don't be scared of it. I mean, like only 1% of us are. And I'm not one of the 1%, but only a very small amount of people are going to be professional pickleball players. So this is your journey. Enjoy it. Don't get so go work on it. Play as many events as possible. Like how lucky are we that in our lifetime we were able to discover this sport that allows us to compete after for many of us many years of not being part of any sport or league. So go enjoy it. Use your DUPR. Get excited and this is good stuff. This is the fun part. Don't be sad about this. DUPR is just the language of the sport. That's all it is.
Love it. Well, yeah, like you said, it's a universal language. So no matter where we're playing, who we're connecting with, no matter the age, gender, country that we're at playing, it's all connected, which is amazing. It's the beauty of pickleball. It's the beauty of the sport and the community aspect of it. So like you said, it's just fortunate that we're even able to speak today and be a part of all of this. So it's super exciting. But yeah, I really appreciate your time here, Tito. It was amazing chatting with you. Hope to connect in person sometime soon. I know we've only chatted over the phone, so hopefully we'll see each other at a future tournament. But I really, really appreciate your time. Super fun chatting, and thanks for everything, man.
Thank you, Brodie. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.